Everyone. For those of you that are joining us, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Mandy Millen and I'm the brand manager of Survival, and I'm also the founder of Flow Wellbeing. So for me, passion and work is really about health, safety and wellbeing in the workplace. And for Survival, as an Australian family-run business of 30 years now, in first aid, we're really excited about our partnership with Guy Leech and Heart 180, working together with first aid and also DFibs, which is so important in the workplace and the community. So thank you, Guy, for joining us. I thought this would just be great to just have a normal conversation so people can understand where we're coming from and what we're doing. So over to you, just to hear a little bit about your story and how you got into DFibs.
So my background, for those that that may not know, was that back in the 80s and the 90s, I was involved in the Ironman sport, which was a surf lifesaving event that turned into becoming a professional sport. And I was back in 1984. I was the lucky person to win the first ever professional Ironman race in the world. So it was a race on the Gold Coast, and it was the short story is that it was put on because there was a movie under a name called the Coolangatta Gold, and they put a race on called the Coolangatta Gold, and it ended up being a 46-kilometre slog, paddling, swimming and running from Surfers Paradise to Coolangatta and then all the way back again. So it was a long way, and it was January in 84, which was super hot, right in the middle of summer, and 100 of the best multi-endurance aquatic athletes from around the world were pretty much invited to turn up to this race. And they first place back in 1984 was $20,000 worth of gold. So it took 4.5 hours for me to go and swim and run and do all that stuff from Surfers to Coolangatta and then back again. And in 4.5 hours, I ended up building a 1.5 to 2 minute lead that I hung on for pretty much 2 hours of the race, the back end of the race, to take line honours and win that event. And so for me, that day was probably the most extraordinary day of my life up until now, because I was involved in not only the first ever professional event of this sport ever. I became a household name from when I crossed the finish line. So by the time the next morning came, I'd been on the front page of every newspaper, lead on every radio show, and was the lead on every news telecast that went out for the next day. So my world changed on that day, and I had just left school, didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was basically given the opportunity to become a professional athlete for the next 15 years of my life, full time, based on that one event. So that was sort of my background. So I was not lucky to win the race, but I was certainly lucky to be in an era where the sport was massive over that sort of first 10 years of the Ironman sport and the racing. It got to a stage where it was on Channel 10 on a Sunday afternoon every second weekend for 2 to 3 hours. It was live television. We got up to 1 million people back in the 80s and 90s watching the sport, and the top people in it became super famous, and there were all the benefits that went with it, which was sponsorship and being able to pretty much do what you love doing and make a good earn from it. So that was my background. And then I retired when I was 35 years of age from professional sport. And, I always knew that health and fitness was going to be my thing off the back of that. And I suppose for a lot of athletes that have been high profile and have been the best at what they do, they get to that crossover in their life where they've got to make a decision to pull up stumps, and they either can't do what they were doing before because they're not good enough, they're too old, injury, whatever it is, or lose interest.
Yeah.
and then go into the next stage of your life. And you see a lot of, I suppose, car crash type stories of people that that you watch the next chapter and you see it because they're famous, and you think, how the hell have they got themselves into this predicament off the back of being so good at what they were doing previously. So for me, it wasn't that. I was really lucky that I knew what I wanted to do, and by the time it came for me to not want to race anymore, I was very comfortable in going into health and fitness, and I sort of did that for the next, I suppose, 10 to 15 years, where I built up a business around becoming sort of a voice and face of wellness and fitness and those sort of things. And I was, was fortunate to be able to build up off the back of my name ranges of products in Anaconda stores, where I had kayaks and stand-up paddle boards and clothing, and I was in all the big W stores around the country, and those programs were, they were turning over $3 to $4 million a month in revenue. So it became a fun experience, and in that time I got to train people like Madonna and Hugh Jackman and the Kidmans, and so I've got all these really cool stories here of famous people that you wouldn't sort of come across other than the fact of what you were doing moving forward from the Ironman sport. And so, I've got some really good memories of training people like Dicko and Jonathan Coleman, and seeing people lose 30 and 40 kilos of weight and transforming their lives, and traveling around the country with Madonna when she was touring out here, and doing, training her in the mornings before she'd go and perform in the evenings in, stadiums that filled 100,000 people. So it was, it's been good fun. But I suppose the other, when I mentioned the fact that, in '84 when I won that race was just a momentous day in my life, and a crossroads for where I was. That happened 4.5 years ago again. And so for me, one of the things I did off the back of retiring was I knew that I wanted to keep exercising in the mornings particularly. And the way I went and did that was I set up sort of aquatic boot camps where I live, where people turn up and go paddling, and we run and do all these things. And that grew to becoming quite big. And so sort of 5 mornings a week, when the sun came up, I'd have 20 or 30 people turn up and go and train with me. And because people were paying to go and do fitness with me, it got me out of bed on those mornings where I otherwise would sleep in, And so I was trying to set something up that would do that. And so it became something that grew and grew and grew. And the group that grew over 16 to 17 years, had hundreds of people in there that would, semi-regularly turn up and do these sessions. 4.5 years ago, at the end of one of those sessions, one of my best mates was in the class, and he did the class regularly, and he basically paddled in 10 minutes earlier because he felt a bit crook, and said, we normally had breakfast after doing the classes, where everyone would sort of get together and have a laugh at breakfast. And he told the other guys to tell me that he'd see us at breakfast. He just wasn't feeling that good. So he paddled in, 10 minutes before us, got to his car to put his kayak on the car, and he had a sudden cardiac arrest and dropped next to his car, and unbeknownst to us because we were still out in the water. So we paddled in, a little bit later, and all hell broke loose because we could see up the beach on the grass there was someone doing resuscitation on someone. Couldn't work out who it was because they were a couple of 100 metres away, and it ended up being my mate Chucky. So 25 of us ran up. I sort of said to the guy, have you called AAA? That was yes. Have you done CPR before? And he said, I've been trained at the surf club. And I said, do you want me to take over? And he said, yes. So I took over and started doing CPR on my mate. And so all the other boys, the group, were around watching. So it was sort of a surreal situation. And because I didn't know that he had an electrical issue with his heart, and the other thing I didn't know was that the only thing that was going to get him back was a shot from a defibrillator, I was pumping his chest, hoping and thinking that I'd get him back, because that's what I knew. When you're in the surf club in the 80s and 90s, there were no defibs around. Defibrillators weren't something that were the norm. The technology wasn't there for them. I got brought up that when you drag someone in out of the surf and they weren't breathing, you'd call 000, you start resuscitation, the ambulance would turn up, and you do your best, and when they turned up, they take over. So my mate Chucky didn't make it, and he didn't make it because the ambulance took the normal time they take to get to someone, which is about 15 minutes. And the realization was that I was unaware of all of this. So off the back of that, I learned all this stuff that I know now, and the reason why I do what I do now, and the reason why I set up Heart 180 and get defibs out there into the community. So I learned after the fact that the biggest killer here in Australia isn't cancer. It's not car crashes. It's not COVID-19. It's sudden cardiac arrest. And sudden cardiac arrest is when the electrical system in your heart, going from your brain, plays up, and your brain thinks that the heart's doing this with pumping, but it's actually shaking and wobbling and doing that, which is what happened to Chucky. So, and I learned that the only thing you can do to get someone back is to use a defib on them to shock the heart, to recalibrate and give it the best chance of actually kicking it over and restarting and getting it pumping again. So the other thing I learned was that time is absolutely critical. And so if you can get the pads of a defib onto the patient in 180 seconds, and that's why my business is called Heart 180, 180 seconds in that time span. And if you pump the chest and you do a decent job, then you've got more than a 70% chance of getting the person back. If you're actually good at CPR and can do that really, really well, then the patient's got up to 90% chance of actually surviving. So the kicker in this is that for every minute after the 180 seconds of not putting the pads on the patient, they've got 10% less chance of surviving. And so when the ambo turns up at the 15-minute mark, because they're rushing to get to you and they can't get to you any quicker than that, if you do the maths on that 10%, then the person's got no chance of actually coming back. So the survival rate on the streets of Australia for sudden cardiac arrest is 6% or thereabouts.
Wow.
Which is quite, it's quite staggering when you think that, if I could just get those pads on Chucky and I do good CPR because I got taught it, then he had up to 90% chance of surviving if we were there when it happened, as opposed to bringing 000 and just pumping the chest and waiting. So all this stuff was staggering to me. And the interesting thing was that when I asked my mates, who were well-informed, educated people that, have been around, no one knew that this was the biggest killer. No one knew that you had to have a defib.
Yeah. And it's part of your world, I suppose. Like you were saying, you were part of surf clubs, the Ironman, and it was like a big impact. But obviously this happened and it sort of shook something up in you and your mates, and it was like, well, let's dig deeper. Let's create something.
I just it was an organic program to where we are now. Like we've come a long way in 4 years. Like, so the first thing was, oh shit, I should get a defib because I'm training people. Yeah. And so, the first thing I did was there was 100 regular guys predominantly that trained in the morning. And the first thing I said to the guys was, hey, listen, we don't want to be doing this again. You guys should, if you haven't been checked up and had a referral to a cardiologist, because these are guys from 40 to 70 years of age in my group, fit people, but that age group. And I said, guys, you've got 8 weeks to go and get a referral, see a cardiologist. And if you haven't done that in 8 weeks, then don't come paddling because I don't want to be doing this again. It's no fun, we need to limit the exposure of actually having this happen again. So 100 of them went and got checked up by a cardiologist. And of those 100, 5 fit, healthy blokes had to go and have stents put in.
Wow.
Then on top of that, another 18 of them had to go on medication because they had issues with high blood pressure, issues with cholesterol, And these are people that exercise most days of the week, don't do drugs, none of them smoke, and they're healthy sort of, well-balanced sort of people. So that sort of freaked me out. And then I sort of went, well, if that's the case, all the other guys said, oh, get me a defib, Leechy. So the person I bought the defib off, I went and got more of them. And by the time I'd gone and handed out 40 defibs around to my friends to put them into their cars and into their homes and the like, I got approached by the company to say, well, you're doing amazing work here. Why don't you get involved? So I started getting involved part-time. And so fast forward to now where, Heart 180 is the fastest growing defibrillator business in the country. We will distribute 2,000 to 5,000 devices this year, depending on how the rest of the year goes with COVID. Every 8 weeks, we hear about someone's life being saved by one of our devices. We have online training that comes with the device that makes it a very simple process to become empowered and enabled to be able to use them. We have deals in place, as example, with Harvey Norman, where Harvey Norman are the first ever national retail platform to go and sell defibs to the general public and educate them into the devices. So they sell our devices out there into the community. So we've done some really good things, and we've built an army of people like yourself that want to get involved and get more defibs out there. So reality is this: the company that I'm involved in, they own, one of the defib companies they own was the company that invented the defib out of Seattle. And Seattle, that was 70 years ago. And Seattle have this amazing education process over there for people to understand CPR, understand defibs, get to feel comfortable with how to use them. And if you drop in the streets of Seattle from a sudden cardiac arrest, then you've got up to 65% chance of surviving. Here in Australia, 6%. So we know that you can actually, there's a long way to go to get to 65% survival rate. And when you start talking about over 30,000 people this year are going to die from a sudden cardiac arrest, then the numbers are staggering. We all freak out because COVID's getting 1 or 2 people a day, which is not good anyway, but we freak out about that. The media don't talk about the 100 people today that will die from a sudden cardiac arrest. And the crying shame with all of that is that we've got a solution. And you hear about the kid under the age of 10 that drops at school or at home today from that, and we've got a solution that can fix it. So it's a really big problem. And I think that when the dust settles on everything going on now at the moment, that this is the single biggest issue that this country needs to look into, because Aussies are dying for no reason, and they're dying every minute, and we can do something about it.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing your story. I think it's really, really commendable what you've done and what you've taken, your experience and how you've grown this. I think it's just wonderful, and that's why I initially reached out to you, because I saw what you were doing, and it's great to have this partnership. But if we were to bring it into the workplace now as well, what's going on in the workplace is obviously together now we're placing first aid solutions and defibs into workplaces. I mean, how important do you feel that is? Because obviously people want to be compliant in the workplace, but it's not a compliant duty with a defib, but it should be.
Yeah, it will be eventually. I think that what happens organically at the moment is something goes wrong at home or at work, and you get a phone call. People see what you're doing on social media, they hear about you, and they find you on the website, and Johnny's taken a turn at work, he's had a cardiac arrest, the ambulance has turned up, he's either survived or he hasn't, and they freak out and they want to get a defibrillator into the workplace. And the irony is that a workplace has to have smoke detectors, has to have a fire extinguisher in the building, but doesn't have to have a defib. And there's more people die in a day from, related to a defibrillator than what happens for a whole year to do with fire, for instance. So, it's sort of warped the way it works. But to answer your question, I think that it's about education,
Yeah.
and people just don't know. Like I, I'm not angry with people that don't understand. And so when you hear this story from me, you think, geez, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that it was such a big deal. And I
Yeah.
didn't realize that defibrillators were really easy to use, and they talk you through everything, and you don't have to know anything. And in a 15-minute online course that you get from Guy and his team, that's enough for me to go and operate these things. So people don't know that. But
Yeah.
I think what happens is when they do know that, then the question then is, well, how much do they cost? Can I get one? If I use it, is there any responsibility on me if something goes wrong? Then those questions come up. So I think we're in a 5-year sort of phase where the more that we talk about it, the more noise we make, the more opportunity there is for more defibs to go into the workplace.
Yeah, I think so. And I think a lot of people we're finding now are noticing, I need to think about defibs actually. I think, like you said, it's starting to sink in with the statistics, even like you said, is people think, that's going to happen to someone older who's really unfit, where the reality is exactly what you were saying, it's not the case. And so
some prejudice.
saying what we say with survival, it's best to be prepared and have that education before you reach that point. And then, if you can't make it in time, that's the worst thing can happen.
You just want to give yourself the best shot. Like the thing with Chucky for me was because I didn't know any different, I went to bed at night and I slept at night, thinking to myself that I did the most I could. I tried the hardest. I didn't want anyone else on his chest. I wanted me to be the person because I felt like I would give him the best opportunity to live through it because I've done it before. But I didn't know about defibs, And the thing was, off the back of that, I didn't feel guilty because I didn't know. But what I would be guilty if it ever happened was if the thing happened again and I didn't have a defib and I didn't act on the information that I was given. So, I feel comfortable in that, and I feel like that, this whole business and what I do now is based on trying to save more people and not have other Chuckies out there go through what we went through. And, we do things like we build a program called Behind the Hearts program, which is a 1300 number that we've got, where if you're involved in a rescue for someone or a bystander or the person on their chest using the defib, whatever it is, we've got same-day access to senior psychologists to talk to get through the situation mentally. So what we've tried to do is not just be, here's your defib, see you later, do your best. We're there for the whole journey with you. The online training we've got is the best out there we've built. And that after service was based around my mates that watched what happened that day. Some of them were beaten up more mentally than what I was because they couldn't actually do anything. They had to sit and watch and couldn't act. And I think that hurt them more than me actually being proactive and being the one pumping his chest. So, we learned that, there's more to this than just, having a defib and having a go. You've got to look after people after the fact as well.
Yeah, and I think that shows that's your passion and what's happened with you. You put your heart into it, linking to Heart 180. But same with survival, the owners, they've had 2 incidences where they found children covered in blood, and they were rustling around with archaic first aid kits, and they couldn't get to anything in time. So they set up the kits that were so well laid out, but now they offer this free app, which is iFirst Aid, which enables people to run through every first aid incident as well. So it's about support. It's about education. They've been through that. You've been through that, experience.
And the thing is, when I met you guys, it's interesting that and sat down, the stories were pretty much exactly the same. It was like you saw an incident, you felt like you wanted to do more. You felt like what was being offered wasn't enough, and you thought, screw it, we'll come up with something that's better, and we're going to make a difference.
Yeah.
And I think in business or anything, like I learned in sport, that I might not have been the most talented at what I did, but I loved it more as much as anyone that could ever love the sport that I did, and because of it, I became the best at it. And it's the same with this. I just feel like the people that get involved in Heart 180 are ones that reach out to me like you did because you really want to help and you want to make a difference, and you care, you know, and it's not about the money.
Yeah.
It's about giving back and doing something that you're proud of, and you want to stamp you know, your mark on the world, you know.
Yeah, and saving lives, you know, at the end of the day, when we get, you know, survival get calls of, wow, that snake bite kit really saved my child's life when I was out camping, or, you know, that first aid kit, you know, it came, you know, that was just incredible. That's really what makes you turn up for work every day, you know.
Correct. So, you know, for me, it was really easy to, you know, if you sort of said to me, you know, the phases in my life, the Ironman thing was the most important thing at the time in my life. And all I cared about was that, and being the best at it. And now I look at this and go, this is the most important thing that I want to do. And you know, and I spend all my time on it. And because of it, I truly believe that we can get to that same sort of number that Seattle's got. And there's like a yellow brick road to get there, and you sort of understand that it's possible, and you know, it gets me out of bed every day. So no, it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and that we're really excited with the workplace. Obviously, we've worked together already, and we've rolled out lots of first aid solutions and DFibs together, and that's brilliant nationwide. And the other thing, because I knew that we'd chat and the time would go. So the other thing I want to touch on is the community aspect that we're going to be working on together and getting DFibs. We're obviously working on the workplace, and that's going really, really well together. Let's talk about now getting DFibs into the community. Mike, you know, he's already bought one up here in the Central Coast where we're based. We're going to start working together and really infiltrating it into our communities. How can people get involved? And let's talk about it, because it's really exciting.
So it sort of dawned on me during COVID, you know, when you're sitting around and you're sort of thinking a bit more because you've got more time. Yeah. I thought, well, you know, the issue is this, that most people have cardiac arrests at home. You know, and because more people are at home now because of self-isolation, and even once COVID goes, a lot of people are going to spend more time at home just because they're like, we don't have to go to work as much. We can work from home, and we do our exercise at home now online. We don't go to, you know, whatever it is. So, you know, what I thought was this, you know, if you like, the mission statement for Heart 180 is to get a DFib within 180 seconds of anyone having a sudden cardiac arrest. Now, that's a pretty tall order to try to go and reach, because it's a massive country. We're spread out, lots of land and all the rest of it. So, you know, what I thought was we need a neighbourhood program, a streets program where we basically grid a street within 50 homes, and we come up with a simple platform and process for those 50 homes to all contribute to get a DFib into their area. And so the DFib would go in the middle, one of the middle houses on the wall where everyone in the street knows where it is. They do the online training. They're all prepped up, ready to go. And if something goes wrong in that area, they've got the DFib there. It's cost them less than $100 per household to get one. So the cost has been amortized. And it's a really easy way to get more people involved with having a DFib in a close proximity. So that's how the idea started. So we're testing that at the moment on the North Shore. And as you said, Mike has offered that out in his street. And at the minute, we're looking at building an app, a website app where a street can go into the app. They can raise the money inside there for their street. The app gives notification of where DFibs are for the general public. The online training's on there as well. And so it's a one-stop shop to be able to go and get DFibs out into the community in a really easy way. So we're trying to come up with the right platform so that it's not clunky to do it. I think that for some people, you know, $2,500 is you know, acceptable to be able to go and buy a DFib, but for a lot of people, you know, it's a lot of money. And you know, this program of getting DFibs out into the community makes the cost not an issue. But we just need to have an easy process on how they can go about doing it.
Yeah, and it's a great way of connecting everyone. You know, it's everyone knowing that they've all done that together, and they've all got each other's back when it comes to health if something was to happen. And you know, poor Janet was to have, something happened to her, what have you. So no, I think it's brilliant, and I think it was just good to talk about it, to let people know that it's on the horizon, and we're fully behind it. As I said, we've already got involved with the streets here in Central Coast, and we're ready to help you promote that and get that, because I think it's just, whenever I mention it to people, I just say, wow, what a great idea. And like you say, whether it's, if you can't reach 2,500, understandable, you can all chip in within the street, then, everyone's there for each other. And I just think it's because they don't realise the frightening statistics that you've mentioned,
Yeah, exactly. Look, the thing is,
but they just think, oh, why should we get one? When you talk about the statistics, that's when people are,
and we're trying to make it, like, if we can make it really easy, and it costs $60 or $70 a household to get one within 180 seconds of a street, which is around that 50 houses, 25 on one side and 25 on another, as an example, then look, it's very doable. It's very doable. But you need the platform, so it's easy for the street all to find out about it.
Yeah.
Download the app. You can donate into there to raise the money, and it's a simple process to then get the DFIB. So it hasn't been done before like this, and we're just giving it some thought so that we can make it as simple as possible for the communities.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'm just going to open it up actually to questions. If anyone has any questions now for Guy and myself, then please shoot them through and I'll see. But already, thank you to Ilan. I know he's in Israel. He's another sort of somebody who's getting into partnership with us, and he's already said what a fantastic community initiative, and it sounds really simple as well. And I think that's what you're saying, is it's keeping it simple for everyone. But
ideas are good, but then it comes down to those processes you need to put in place so that the thing can actually work. So I'm just mindful that we need to build something that is really easy to understand and not confusing, and it's a simple process for someone to go, well, I can put my $60 through here. The street gets notified this way, and there's alerts open, like on your phone, like with COVID, with the app, that you leave Bluetooth on, there's something goes wrong in the street, it pings everyone in the street to notify them that someone's gone down and to help. So they're all the things that we're trying to do to make the actual system so good that people go, well, then why wouldn't I do it in my street?
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to evolve, isn't it? With, teething issues to start, and it's just getting it out there to start.
It is.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well, thank you, Guy. That's been brilliant. It's been lovely. I've heard your story and loved it before, but I know that it's it's just great to share it. And I've got actually a question from Fiona. Would the app be password protected so that those who contributed financially were the only ones that could use it?
So to be set up, like you'd go in and you'd put in your street, like Johnson Street, and when the street leader sets up, as an example, sets up Johnson Street, they put in a password, and then they pass that password around to the other people in the street. To then you'd go in and log in, and that's your password for your community, for your area. Yeah.
Brilliant.
But we're trying to set it up so that it's got there's satellite navigation. Like you can ping that your street's got a DFIB, and then the wider community can download the app, and they know that they don't know exactly where the DFIB is in your street, but the other streets will know that there's one in there. If something went wrong, they could and you could have like a couple of mobile numbers in there for someone to contact you if the DFIB was needed, type thing. So we're planning all that out at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant.
It'll be password protected for sure. Yeah.
Excellent. Hopefully that answers your question, Fiona. If anyone, something like the Good Sam app.
Yeah, so Good Sam's like a worldwide app that you can register yourself to be able to do CPR, use a DFIB, and where DFIBs are, you can register the DFIBs. Which is a good thing. Yeah, so it'll be like that, except for the fact that we're using ours to be able to, for community streets to be able to raise the money and get the DFIBs within their own little sector, and the online training's there and everything, so it's a one-stop shop. So yeah, it'll be like that, but more around the neighbourhood community fundraising for the DFIBs.
And just one more from Michelle. Would the defib be attached to the external wall of a particular house or kept inside?
It'd be, so you'd pick, the street would pick the best place. And we've done this in other streets already. You'd pick a central location that makes sense. So for instance, if someone had a carport out the front of their place that was not in, you get a wall bracket that comes with the defib, a couple of screws into the wall, but you'd put it to the side of the carport, so it's undercover, not in view of the street, so someone can't walk past and take it. But the street knows that it's all sitting there. So we've had that happen, like at Clontarf, which is on the northern beaches where I live. 2 years ago, one of my mates from school got a defib for the street, and it got used a year later by a party. There was a party across the road, and someone had a sudden cardiac arrest that didn't live in the street but was there at the party. They got the defib out and put it on the person, so because they knew where it was. So yeah, so
Michelle thinks she knows him. She said, "Is it a Queensland guy?"
No. It was Clontarf in Sydney, and the guy, no, he's a Sydney guy.
Okay.
Yeah. But
so I suppose this is really important as well, with so many people starting to work from home as well that are there with communities.
Yeah, like 80% of the sudden cardiac arrest deaths are up from homes. So so the irony is that you will know the person that drops, you'll know the person that you have to work on, and you'll have an emotional attachment to that person to want to get them back, like I did. So it's very rarely is it random people that are the ones that you actually have to go and try to bring back. It ends up being a neighbour, a work colleague, or a family member that you're dealing with. So yeah, it's full on, really is. Yeah, but look, the thing is, the defibs that we provide, the one that I push the most, you get told not just that it's going to shock someone, to ring 000, where to put the pads. It does all that, but the one that I push the most, it actually tells you if you're not pushing deep enough, quick enough, doing compressions. Push deeper, good, quicker. You can't get it wrong. So the unit that we promote the most is the one that brought back the yellow wiggle earlier this year, Greg Page.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So anyone can use this.
500p, Fiona. Yeah.
So like I literally feel like it, with the 15-minute online training we give you and that device, you can save someone, like you'd be very confident. That you could save someone.
Yeah. And I think, with leaders and with budgets from HR, what have you, for a defib, it's not, when they think about it, what they need to do is their duty of care. Same with us with first aid solutions. If you want to get the best and you want to protect your people and stand up for that, it's key.
Well, we launched, which you don't know yet, but we launched in the next week, rentals for the 500p. So you can get one for your business for $22, $23 a week, that you can run out as an expense, and under a 3-year lease, and you get a 500p, you get the online training, wall bracket, you get all the kit and caboodle. So if the upfront cost is something you don't want to deal with, we've got that. We're coming up with that option as well. So just low interest rate, just through a platform that Apple use for their products. So
you have to let me know about that, because we've come up obviously with great first aid solutions now to make auditing cheap and easy for people as well. So so you don't have to have people coming on site servicing. For example, we've got switch and go, where people can have first aid kits switched really easily and really reasonably and efficiently with the kits, with the apps. So if people can rent as well.
Yeah, we switch it every 3 years. We give you a brand new device or an upgrade if the unit's been upgraded, and then the one we take back will go out to someone needing. So we utilise that. So it's a community and help program as well. But it just, for some people that don't want to pay $2,500 up front, for $20 a week, you've got a device there that sits on the wall. It's sweet, and you can build it into your cash flow. So.
Yeah, it's excellent. That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Guy.
Thank you
for taking this time. Are you off for an ocean swim now, or?
No, we've done the paddle already. We've done it. A little bit of work on this rental program, or maybe a bit of golf later.
Oh, it's a tough life, isn't it?
Love it.
Well, lovely speaking to you, and I'm sure we'll be in touch soon. If anyone has any questions for Guy or I, obviously you can just reach out to us, and I'll get in touch from there. So yeah, have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. See
Bye
ya.
everyone, take care. Bye bye.